Welcome to Let the Boys Kiss, the creation of queer ships, where we ask the question, is it queer baiting, queer goading, or queer canon?
This week, we'll be discussing Billy and Stu from 1996's Scream. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kelsey.
A Halloween-themed episode.
Yes, and a listener request. Now, neither you nor I had ever seen Scream before.
Nope.
So we had no idea that there was queer stuff happening in it.
But we were excited to hear it. We're always excited to hear about queer stuff happening.
Especially from like the 90s or
Yes.
the past in general.
The past in general. But this is an interesting case because, yeah, people have been talking about this ship since the 90s. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of conversation about it. So excited to get into it. Before we tell you who they are, I will say spoilers always on this show, but like this is a real spoiler for this movie.
Yeah.
So if you plan to watch the movie, I would do that first.
Yes. What we're going to get into is sort of the twist of the film. So,
yeah. So who are they?
All right. Well, they're two teenage boys. They go to high school together and they're murderers.
Womp womp.
Wah-wah.
You know, how you want to like murder people with your homoerotic best friend situation. It's kind of a normal thing to do.
Of course, we've all been there. We all went to high school.
Exactly. It's high school, people. You know.
So yes, the sources that we were looking at are the 1996 Wes Craven film Scream, and we did both watch it. So we had not seen it, but now we have.
And now we have.
So good for us.
Yes, good for us. That is all the material for reasons that will become clear as we describe the plot of it. And so let's dig into the canon, such as it is. It's only a movie, so obviously there's not that much going on with them. But even in this movie, they're not on screen the whole time together.
No, I'd forgotten who the ship was
Right.
when I started watching the movie. And I was getting pretty deep into the film and I was like, this doesn't seem very queer. Something better happened, but then it did. So we didn't put this in the outline, but I think we should probably give like a broad overview of the film.
Yeah, agreed. Otherwise, this isn't going to make any sense. Although, as we said at the top, you should probably just watch it because...
Yeah, but you might not like slasher films or horror films, so, you know, it might not be your thing, and we understand that.
So the broad strokes are... There's a murderer in town at the very beginning of it. He murders a boyfriend and girlfriend from the high school that all of our main characters go to. And it's a guy in a like nondescript, what they call it, ghost face mask that you could buy at any, you know, costume store around town.
Oh my.
And so there's a thought that it's someone connected to their high school. They're just grasping at straws, but we need to figure out who this is. And then we meet our main character, Sydney, who she has some sort of dramatic, mysterious past. We start to get clues that something happened to her mother. And then she is the next target of this ghost face killer who, as I think people will probably be aware of a lot of the things about this movie because it's so... Yeah. It's like in pop culture. So it's the thing where like he calls before he comes to kill you, to traumatize you and let you know he's watching you from outside your house. So yeah, tries to kill her, doesn't succeed the first time. And then her boyfriend, Billy, who's one half of our ship here, shows up at her house. She gets a little suspicious at the timing. She thinks it might be him who's doing it. They arrest him. But then while he's in jail, someone calls her and it's like, oh, it can't be him. It's someone else. They let him out. Then there's a big party to try to distract themselves.
Yes. And it's worth saying her dad's out of town. So she's, you know, on her own. And there's some question about like who actually killed her mom. So it's like maybe it was her dad. Yeah. She was having an affair.
She testified against the guy that she thinks did it, who is like has been in prison since this happened.
And who is Liev Schreiber, who's in the movie for like 2 seconds. And you're like, is that Liev Schreiber? And it was.
Why? Why did they even show him? But anyway.
I think he maybe comes back in Scream 2 and he has
probably.
A bigger part. Which, yeah.
There's also Courtney Cox plays a local journalist who is following this story, but also was following her mother's murder and believes that the guy who went to jail for it is not actually guilty. So she's raising all of these questions in Sydney's mind about, are you actually sure that you saw him do it, or did you just see a guy in his jacket? You know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and David Arquette is a cop, and he's sweet and bubbling.
He's adorable, and he is smitten with Courtney Cox, because of course he is. And so yeah, they have a big party, because why wouldn't you have a big party when there's a
Your
murderer
teens.
tracking the teens of the town? And, you know, some shit goes down at the party. Her best friend gets murdered by the Ghostface killer.
Bummer.
Pretty sad. There's also, we should talk about Jamie Kennedy's character, because the Scream's whole thing is that it's like self-referential, it's taking on the tropes
Meta.
of horror, it's commenting on how horror movies work, and so he's this character that works at like a Blockbuster and knows all the horror tropes and is like, you know, this is what happens in a horror movie. He immediately suspects Billy, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
of being the killer. And then all through it, he's like, this is how you get killed and this is how you survive in a horror movie. And obviously we're following all of the tropes of it as we go through. So he's at the party calling out all of the ways that everything's going to go down. And eventually, you know, I don't know how into the various attacks and murders that go on, but it comes out by the end of this. Sydney is alone with Billy and Stu, and they're the murderers.
Yeah.
Big twist.
The Ghostface killer is not one person,
But
it's two
two.
people.
It's very convenient to like alibi you if there's someone else.
I mean, it's a great idea. And yeah, the costume is so covered and vague, as long as you are relatively the same height.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, great idea.
I guess same height and build.
Right.
One of you was like real big. It would be like, that's two different people.
Sure. If depending on how much FaceTime the person is spending with the person. Yeah. Normally they see them and run away,
So yes, at the end, it's revealed that they are the Ghostface killer. Billy, the boyfriend, has a motive, which it turns out that Sydney's mom was a real slut.
Oh, yeah. People have been talking all movie about what a slut Sydney's mom is.
And she was having an affair with Billy's father, which caused Billy's mother to leave him. So he's been damaged.
Trauma.
So their plan is to frame Sydney and Sydney's father for all of the murders. And yeah, and then Stu doesn't really have a motive. He just
likes Billy a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point Sydney does ask Stu, like, so Billy has a murder, what are you going to tell the cops when they show up? And he's like, peer pressure?
I'm a sensitive boy.
Okay, so other than the fact that murdering people with your best friend is inherently gay somehow, why?
We saw heavenly creatures.
We saw heavenly creatures. You can't fool us.
We haven't talked about that on this podcast, have we?
I don't think so. But yeah, why these two specifically? Why are people talking about them?
Okay, so it really is the ending, I think, but there is a scene in the Blockbuster which we should talk about first. So this is before the party is thrown. It's like the lead up to the party.
Yep. They're at the Blockbuster because obviously everyone's always at the Blockbuster. It's the 90s. And Stu starts talking to, what's the name of Jamie Kennedy's character?
That's a great question. His name is not Jamie Kennedy in the film.
I'm assuming it's just like Jamie, you know?
Randy. His name is Randy Meeks.
Sure it is. So, Stu, which I don't know if we said who the other people are. So I'm calling him Jamie Kennedy. So Stu is Matthew Lillard, Billy is Skeet Ulrich, and now we're learning Randy is Jamie Kennedy. So Stu is talking to Randy about like the party and the murders and just generally having a conversation about this. And Randy is again talking about why he thinks that it was probably Billy because he's like, they're like, why would he have killed them? Who knows? Could be any reason. Why would he want to kill Sydney? And they give the excuse of like, there's always a reason to want to kill your girlfriend or something like that. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough, I guess. And so then the two of them have this scene where they sort of try to like physically intimidate him into giving up on this theory, kind of. And it involves Matthew Lillard spooning him from behind, which he does with like every guy he has a conversation with in this movie. I really think that's the main reason for this ship, is just how these Matthew
Lillard's acting choices.
Body language with the men around him. Yes. So yeah, he's like, you know, cuddling him as Billy tries to intimidate him into giving up on this. And it's just very like charged. the scene. So that sets you up with some interesting what's going on with this relationship as we get into
Yes.
the party where all of it goes down.
Yes. So skip ahead to them revealing to Sydney that they are the Ghostface killer. And we once again have Matthew Lillard coming up behind Billy and putting his head on his shoulder, as he is wont to do. And, you know, there's the element of it's just like, it's them together.
Against
They're
the
best
world.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about this in the quotes, but there's like a Leopold and Loeb.
Yes. An intentional Leopold and Loeb.
Yes.
From the writer's perspective, that is who they are supposed to represent.
Right. And then, so to sell that they are not the murderers, right? They need to be injured so that when the cops show up, they can be like, oh, they thought we were dead, but we're, you know, not dead. And it was them and they did it. And so in order to do that, they have to stab each other.
Yes. And it's
very
it's quite
very
the production,
phallic.
The stabbing of each other. It's not a minor scene. They take their time. They stab each other multiple times back and forth. It's, you know, intimate. Shall we say.
Right in the lower torso. Primarily,
I mean,
also.
Yep. They're trying to do it in a way where they won't bleed out, but they mostly are just sort of like looking into each other's eyes and stabbing each other for a while. I think that's when they get distracted enough that Sydney runs away. Right?
Yeah. They're pretty keyed into the stabbing of each other that Sydney is able to get out of there. Or is that when Courtney Cox comes in with the gun?
Maybe it is. Yeah. Courtney Cox comes and distracts them, and then they get distracted with her, and then
certainly the gun goes missing.
Yep. Stu sets it on a table. Yeah. He goes back over to get it. It's not there, and then Courtney Cox has taken it.
Well, they were stabbing each other.
Yes. Well, it's very distracting to be stabbing your best friend.
You know, okay. I think that's fair enough.
I just love that they did it first. Why didn't they murder the people and then stab each other? I don't understand.
You know, workshopping how we would do things differently.
When we do this, we're going to be way better at it.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's a really good question. I don't
leave
have
Sydney
an answer.
Standing in the kitchen as they stab each other.
I don't have an answer for that. You know, I guess this isn't an answer to how to make this a better murder. It is after like Billy has revealed his trauma, and you know, so then they have this like intimate moment between themselves. I don't know if thematically if it makes more sense. Because the thing is, they've been so successful. I think they got overconfident. They're teenager boys.
They did. That's true. Once you've had 3 successful murders, I mean, you're like, well, we can do no wrong. It's really easy to murder people.
More than 3 at that point because they killed the cameraman.
Well, but that's the same night. It's not like they've gotten away with it.
Oh, I see. Like
you know,
at that point, they'd killed Henry Winkler.
Oh, well, then I guess kind of 4.
Oh, yeah, because
I'm thinking of the mother, which they fully got away with.
And then Drew Barrymore
and the boyfriend from the beginning. And then, they did kill Henry Winkler, but nobody had even found him by the time the party happens.
They kill Henry Winkler
for fun. He's the principal. Oh, okay. I'm sure that they've gotten detention or something, and they were mad about it.
Or did they know that was going to distract a bunch of the other kids and get them to run out of the party so that they'd go to the school to see his dead body hung on the football?
Maybe, but it's not really clear how that information gets to Randy. Like, someone we don't hear calls and is like, by the way, the principal is murdered. So I don't know. Hard to say if that was part of the plan or not.
All right. Well, they've killed a bunch of people. So I think at this point, they're pretty confident.
Yeah. They're not thinking it all through about how much harder it will be to murder 2 people once they both have multiple abdominal stab wounds.
No. Oh, well.
Oh, well. You live, you
Too
learn.
bad for them. You don't, because they died.
Yeah.
At the end. Okay. So that's the kind of the canon of it.
Yep. Oh, we have to talk about this.
Wait, what do you think?
I'm thinking about our note that we haven't mentioned.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So before this all happens, sorry, we went a little out of order. Sydney's been kind of frigid with Billy since her mother's death.
To be fair, her mother was raped and murdered, and it's traumatized her a little bit.
And she came upon the scene.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm just saying that's what's happened.
Although it's the 90s movie, and it does sort of play as like, gosh, I'm sorry, I am this way.
I mean, she is. She's very apologetic to her
Yes.
boyfriend. And she should break up with him. He's kind of real sucky about it.
I mean, regardless of the murder thing
Yeah.
aside, who cares about that? There's a scene where he's like, come on, it's been a year. You should get over it by now.
And you're like, yeah, he sucks. You should and also he was kind of being like, my mom left me and I'm
Yeah, he
fine.
literally says to her, why can't you get over it? My mom walked out on my dad. And she's like, your mom's still alive.
And also you didn't come upon the scene. So anyway, she probably should have broken up with him beforehand. But anyway, so she's been feeling bad about being closed off.
And then she feels bad about accusing him of being the murderer when supposedly he's cleared of that now.
Yes. And so at the party, sort of in parallel with the scene where Jamie Kennedy is fully explaining the rules of the horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's explaining, like, you got to remain a virgin because virgins do not die.
The only people who live are virgins. Yep.
Yeah, she has sex with Billy, losing her virginity.
Yeah, her like cloak of, protection.
And so right after that happens, the Ghostface killer bursts in and seemingly stabs Billy.
I mean, fair enough, because he did just have sex and he deserves to get stabbed.
True. But as we know, that's now Matthew Lillard, right? And again, the stabbing, quite homoerotic, quite phallic. So very interesting. What is interesting about this scene, right, is assuming that the characters in the movie are also sort of aware of the tropes of the horror movie, which they are. He is not having sex with his girlfriend because he's a horny straight dude.
No.
He's having sex with her so she will no longer be a virgin so that they can murder her.
He has to do it so she'll be murderable. Yep. He's taking one for the team, really.
He really is. He really is. I was also thinking about that scene where she shows him her boobs, and also he like is like nice, but he's like not that
cool,
excited
bye.
about it.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Just a thought. Who knows if it means anything?
So that's the canon. It's a pretty fun movie. If you don't like horror slashers, you probably still won't enjoy it. There's pretty high body count.
I mean,
but it's not scary.
No, it's like see, what's funny is this movie was originally called Scary Movie. Mm-hmm. It's playing with the tropes. It's a commentary on scary movies. It's kind of a comedy in addition to being a horror movie. But they changed it to Scream and then leaving the title available for later them to actually make Scary Movie, which is layers of making fun of scary movies because they're mocking not just regular horrors, but also this. So yeah, it's pretty fun as a deconstruction of the tropes and that kind of thing, and it's well done. I'm not really a horror person, but it wasn't like too scary for me to watch. So if you're on the bubble, you're probably fine.
And honestly, as usual, Matthew Lillard gives a performance.
Oh my God.
And so if you like seeing a Matthew Lillard performance,
it is a performance.
There's one in this.
If you're thinking it's big, it's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Him in the final murder scenes, I mean, chewing the scenery, just delightful.
So that's a good transition to what our actors say. We have some quotes from several of the actors of this film, including Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard has a lot to say about these two. So most of the conversations with these folks are at various cons, panels, in response to questions from fans. So there's a lot of back and forth. And in 2023, so they're still talking about it, however many years later this is, he at a panel said, Stu and Billy were definitely gay. I said it at the 20th anniversary event with Kevin Williamson, who's the writer. Somebody asked, are they gay? I was like, they're definitely gay, right, Kevin? And Kevin was like, probably. So that's my take.
I just like that exchange.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
That's delightful.
We have another set of quotes. This is more of a conversation between Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich. So if you're wondering if, the other half of this ship is on board with the conversation, Skeet said, they did survive. Billy would be teaching English, noting that Stu would work for Panasonic testing TVs. Lillard added, Billy can't read, let's be honest. By the way, Billy and Stu fall in love. They adopt many stray dogs from Costa Rica and they rehabilitate small dogs. And then they slaughter people on the weekends.
An idyllic life.
Yep. I don't know why from Costa Rica, but again, Matthew Lillard's a real
Does
character.
Costa Rica have a lot of stray dogs? I have no idea. Maybe that's a situation.
Great question.
So yes, Matthew Lillard is banging the gong of Stu and Billy are gay and has been for the last 3 decades. And Skeet Ulrich seems cool with it. But how do the other people feel? We also have Nev Campbell talking
Yeah.
about the two of them. She was asked in an interview about Billy and Stu, and she acknowledged their quote burgeoning love relationship before elaborating on exactly what that means. After calling them pretty confused guys, she said maybe some of their anger comes from not being allowed to be who they want to be, if you want to go there. They asked, was Stu more in love with Billy than the other way around? She says, yeah, yes. There is, I will say, in addition to people who just like think Billy and Stu are gay and in love with each other, there are lots of people that think that Stu is in an unrequited love with Billy, and that is why he is like dragged along into this murder plot, which is
Yeah.
another potential option for why someone would do this. Who knows? So yeah, she also sees it. Everybody does.
Okay, so those are the actors. They all seem pretty chill to very into the idea.
On a range from, yeah, that seems fine, to definitely.
Yeah. We also do have some quotes from our writer, Kevin Williamson.
Yes. Who we should say
Yes.
is gay. And so there's like another layer to, what he intended while writing it, but also like why people read extra layers onto things that he might write, as we have explored many times on this show.
Yes. So we have a quote from him talking specifically about Billy and Stu. He says, "It's very sort of homoerotic in the sense that there were these two guys that killed this other person just to see if they could get away with it." Williams said, drawing parallels between the Leopold and Loeb case and Billy and Stu. And then, quote, "And one of the reasons that one could get the other one to follow is because I think the other one was secretly in love with him. And it was sort of a fascinating case study on double murderers. If you Google Leopold and Loeb, you will see. And you'll read about it and you'll go, okay, that's Billy and Stu."
Yeah, fair enough. Solid inspiration for teenage murderers. But he also talks about broadly the themes of the movie and how it speaks to his own experience and why he was inspired to write it this way. So that's pretty interesting. He talks about how the Scream movies are, quote, coded in gay survival. He thinks of Sydney, our main character, as a manifestation of his own struggles. He says it's always the survival tales that connect us. And so I think that's one of the reasons Final Girls are so important to us as a gay audience. If people don't know, we should say Final Girls are the last girl alive at the end of a horror movie.
Coming out of Halloween, and there's a lot of reference to a bunch of different horror movies throughout this movie, but John Carpenter's Halloween is a major
yes, and Jamie Lee Curtis
sure.
in general. There's a lot of talk from Randy about her being the Scream Queen, and so a lot of his conversation is about like, this is what Jamie would do and why she always survives and that sort of thing. Before Kevin Williamson wrote Sydney, he related to Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode in Halloween because, being gay, quote, he understands the plight of the final girl. I know what it's like. I think gay kids everywhere understand that survival element that we have to sort of create in ourselves. And when we're watching that final girl have to prove herself and rise to the challenge and save her life, I think that's something gay kids anywhere can relate to.
You know what's kind of interesting about that? This is a thought I've just had. So
a new thought.
Let's workshop it. Is like, obviously in this movie and other movies, thinking of Halloween, like everyone else is having these straight heterosexual relationships and they're having sex throughout high school. And if you were like the lone gay kid who could not come out, right? That's not an experience you're having. You're watching everyone else have these intimate relationships around you and you are not.
Yeah, that's true. That is interesting. I mean, horror movies generally are about the normal society and the other. Those are always the themes of it. And so there has, throughout the making of them, there's been interesting queer tropes and queer themes, and like some positive and some negative. A lot of queer villains who are portrayed as, this is the other and that's why they're a murderer. But then you can also see Kevin Williamson seeing in his own life relating to the idea of what it is like to be the surviving final girl. So it's an interesting thing to explore.
So those are the quotes. They're pretty like everyone's on board.
What's really interesting to me is this movie is from 1996, and this feels like something people have been like talking about, shipping, reading as queer since it came out. And
it's a nice case where the writers and the people in the creative are like, yeah,
totally.
We don't have anything from Wes Craven, but He also
No.
hasn't been like,
I did
no.
see some unsupported Reddit commentary somewhere where they were like, I remember in the DVD commentary, Wes Craven telling Matthew Lillard that he should play Stu as if he's in love with Billy, but I couldn't find any real evidence of that. So maybe true,
We
maybe
didn't
not. Who
watch the
knows?
movie with the DVD commentary,
I didn't
so
watch the movie on the DVD, so it was quite hard to
me
watch with
neither
the
this time.
commentary. So yeah, it's an interesting case because in terms of like screen time, I guess it feels kind of thin with the two of them, but it does feel like everyone involved was kind of intentionally queer coding it. And so the fact that everyone read it that way was like, yeah, you did it. You picked up on what we were all
Yep.
putting down. Queer coding success story.
Yeah, and again, to the listener who recommended this to us, I think we had no awareness of this. So it's nice to be aware that this was a thing that was happening in the
Yeah.
90s and has continued to happen. And again, it's a fun little movie.
Yeah. Well, we didn't write this in here, but in terms of the commentary around this movie, we hinted at it, but in Scary Movie, the characters that represent these characters in Scary Movie are canonically gay in Scary Movie.
Yeah.
So people have been referencing this about them all along.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Nice. It's Leopold and Loeb. It's those two dudes from Rope.
It is. It's very much the two dudes from Rope. And the stabbing each other scene was very Hannibal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or the Hannibal scene was very
exactly.
Scream.
Yes. So yeah.
It's Leopold and Loeb. It's heavenly creatures.
Yes.
It's Hannibal. It's, it's Rope.
Exactly. All right. Should we talk about the fandom writings?
Indeed, we should. So, AO3. Now, unfortunately, I should say, Scream and this ship does not have like a fan lore page. So
I was devastated.
it is also now occurring to me that we don't have a sense of, was this like popping off on fanfiction.net or anywhere else on the internet pre AO3, since it is a 90s thing. We were not able to find any information about that. So if you were in fandom in the mid to late 90s and write in. We'll do like an update corner in the next episode. But what's happening on AO3 today?
On AO3 today, this is another situation where since it's a series of movies, and this is only one of them, they are all sort of grouped together. So when you go into the tag on AO3, it is Scream Movies. Can't separate this one out. So in the Scream Movies tag, there are 4,400 total fics. 750-ish of them are Billy/Stu, and that is the most popular ship of all of the Scream movies.
Which is pretty good, considering there are 5, 6 Scream movies?
7, 8, 9. Who's to say at this point?
There's a lot. So for it to be the bulk, again, with the minimal screen time.
Yeah.
Impressive, boys.
The second one was a couple of women whose names I didn't recognize, so they were from a different movie. But then after that, it was like Billy/Reader, Stu/Reader. So like,
and then Ghostface/Reader.
Clearly, most of the fandom activity around this is happening with Billy and Stu.
Yes.
So what is the most popular fic that we read?
The most popular fic is a little shorty called Partners in Crime by Basement Vampire.
Nice name.
Indeed. So yes, it's quite short. It takes place before the party, but in the house that the party takes place in, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It's in the bed that the later event happens in.
Yeah, so in the bed where Billy takes Sydney's virginity, we have a scene where Stu and Billy are in bed together, and Stu is thinking about how jealous he is that Billy will be sleeping with Sydney later in the evening. Further reinforcing that, of course, it's only happening so that
it has to be done.
It must be done. And so they start having sex, and Stu's feeling jealous. Aww. And then he confesses this to Billy, and Billy's like, "Don't worry, you're mine, and I'm yours." And Stu's like, "Really?" And Billy's like, "Yeah." And then you're like, "Yeah, okay." It's like 500 words.
Yeah, it's incredibly short. It's a scene, not a, fic, really. But yeah, scrolling through the tab of fic about the two of them, they're all explicit. It seems like it's mostly sex, and it's like not really a huge surprise when the basis of their relationship is murdering people together. But yeah, I said to you before this, there was actually a little more relationship stuff happening than I anticipated in this. It's like them trying to define the relationship before the murder party happens. So, good for them. Glad Stu is reassured about his importance in Billy's life before they go murder a party of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's important to check in.
Yeah. before your boy's gonna sleep with a woman.
Yeah.
Just make sure.
Make sure you're both on the same page. He's only doing it for the plot.
Yeah. Okay, so we realize this is not the longest episode we've ever done.
No.
But again, there's not a ton of content.
No. It's just like a fun little Halloween treat. If people have other, I mean, maybe there are other Scream ships. There's the women that were in the thing that they want to recommend to us. Or if they, again, as we said, if you have any context about what the fandom was like in the 90s, we would love to hear that, because that's always the hardest thing for us to figure out in our research. The fandom stuff that gets lost to time, pre-internet.
Unless someone has done a bang up fan lore page, which is missing for this one. It's always sad when we're doing our research and there's no fan lore page.
I
it's
know.
Like,
fan lore's our favorite website. It's devastating.
Bummer.
Okay.
Okay.
So shall we ask the question?
Well, we should mention we don't have anything in the fans, creators interacting. Like we did say, like most of the conversation we're pulling from is happening at cons. So people are still out there doing cons.
Yes, it is fandom creator interaction.
But it's not anything beyond what we said, which is people go, are they queer? And other people,
and they're like,
people
yep.
go, yes. And so it's positive. It's very lovely and positive, but we don't have anything intense to dig into.
Yeah, there's not any strife between the fans and creators.
We also didn't find anything particularly remarkable with people pushing back against it. Like, obviously, there's some of that on the internet, but it's not its own, like, particular story.
No, I mean, yeah, there's like, we stumbled on the couple of Reddit threads that you'd expect that are like, why does everyone keep saying they're gay? But then all the responses are like, here's why, duh. So,
yeah.
Not a huge movement pushing back against it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yes. Now,
but yeah, we will ask the question: is it queer baiting, queer coding, or queer canon?
Seems like queer coding.
1000%. Queer coding functioning as it is supposed to function in assistance of the story. It's pre-times when people would accuse them of queer baiting because they didn't make them make out in the movie or something. But this is how people used to write queer stories. Code that shit so that the people who are supposed to see it. And they did.
And arguably it's queer coded at multiple levels.
Yeah.
Multiple of the characters depending on how you look at it. So great job, Kevin.
Well done, Kevin. Good work. He was talking about how this is an early project for him, but he went on to do a bunch of stuff. He created Dawson's Creek and other TV shows. And I think he wrote like, I Know What You Did Last Summer. He's been around everywhere.
I haven't seen that either.
Me neither. But I think that's also kind of like self-referential about
I think so too. In my head, Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer like exist in the same rough space.
But I saw him talking about how the experience of putting things that were sort of personal to his life into this movie then empowered him later to make like explicitly queer characters in his later work. There's a gay character in Dawson's Creek, and so that was sort of his evolving in terms of his own writing. So an important movie in his career. But yeah, queer coded. If we gender swap the characters, would they be a couple? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, Billy's got to pretend to date Sydney again for the plot.
Yeah, it's really tough to have if his best friend was a woman, that's going to be a very interesting dynamic in this high school.
Although I do think, all right, okay, let's work through this. Let's say Matthew Lillard is a girl.
Okay.
I feel like in the reveal, they probably would, like, kiss.
Sure.
And they're revealing to Sydney that, like, we're in this together.
But then it's such a weird situation because it's like, why are they having the secret relationship that leads to murder? It just doesn't really fit with, like, the themes.
Billy wants revenge.
Yeah. But it just, to be like, well, then just dump your girlfriend and date this other girl. Like, why, you know, I just think the queer thing plays better thematically.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
You're right that if they had been a man and a woman, the movie would have been okay with them kissing at the end. You are correct about that. But then I just feel like it's sort of like, okay, like,
I'm not saying it would be a better movie.
No. And it wouldn't.
And I'm not taking Matthew Lillard out of anything he's in.
He's so watchable. The man is insane.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me.
Did you really call the cops?
Poor guy.
I know. Well, he's dead at the end, I guess.
Mhm.
Also, let us know if they ever come back in the series, because sometimes stuff like that happens in a long-running series, and we do not know the answer to that.
People have been petitioning for Stu to come back for the last like 5 movies.
Oh, so they don't come back.
I don't think he has yet, but I saw a lot of
He
people
should come
talking
back.
about like, is he going to come back? Should he come back? Will he come back? And Matthew Little will be like, do people want him to come back?
Yes.
Like, yes. So
Can he come back?
I don't know. As they continue to make them, maybe someday.
Because you are right, a TV did just fall off.
Yeah, like a TV falls on you and you're automatically dead. I don't know. I mean, Billy's definitely dead. He gets shot multiple times and in the head,
including right through the head.
So he's dead,
like right in between the eyes,
which is good because they're playing on the thing of like the final girl always thinks the guy is dead and walks away, and in this case, Sydney is like, I'm making sure he's dead.
Yeah, he does. And Jamie Kennedy's like, and then when you don't think he's going to come back, he comes back, and then the guy does sit back up, and then she shoots him.
Yeah.
She's a great shot.
She is. Maybe she's been taking gun like self-defense classes since her mother died.
Probably. Okay. Oh, I was so happy though that David Arquette did not die.
I know, poor little David Arquette. You can't kill David Arquette, but you know why they don't kill him? He's chaste. He doesn't try to do anything with Courtney Cox because he's a very respectful, sweet boy.
Yes. Nice. Okay. Anyway, why it isn't canon because it's 1996. Is the answer to that.
And no queer baiting.
Don't have to rank it on the scale.
Very exciting. What a fun time.
What a nice time.
I'm happy I watched this. That was a really fun movie.
Me too.
Also, we didn't talk about it because it's not relevant to this conversation, but the whole opening scene, I love Drew Barrymore. God, Drew Barrymore, so good.
He's the best.
Oh my God, what a scene.
It's obviously a reference to Psycho, because I'm sure when they advertised it, they were like, Drew Barrymore's in this, Drew Barrymore's in this, Drew Barrymore's in this, and then she dies in the first scene. She's great.
She crushes it.
Love the woman.
She's incredible. Gotta love her. And both, like, she's awesome, but that scene also sets up how fun this movie is going to be in terms of the tropes and, like, playing with the fun of various horror things. And there's classic moments of, you know, when he makes it clear that he can see her and you're like, ah! Like, it's just all good.
Yikes.
Good times.
This is also kind of a movie about, it's interesting how, like, these kids are so rich.
Yes.
You look at, like, their houses and they all live on these huge plots of land and you're like, maybe you guys should live in town.
Well, they're somewhere in California, but it's, like, a little unclear to me where. Because their high school seems like the high schools you would see in, like, a Southern California movie or show. But yeah, they all live out in, like, the Drew Barrymore house looks like it's in, like, a cornfield. You're like, what is this?
It does. But also, like, the house where they have the party has this incredible view of, like, a valley. And you're like, these people are rich.
So they're very rich. They're somewhere in California. It's a little hard to understand their situation. But yeah, they are real rich. And it would help them if they lived closer to other houses. Although we've seen people in neighborhoods get murdered before.
I was thinking about Halloween and Jamie going to her neighbor and her neighbor just turning off the lights. And you're like,
God damn it.
Bastard.
We used to live in a society.
You bastards.
Yep. But yeah, really fun. Well-made movie.
Yeah.
And
enjoyed it.
Fun queer coding. What's not to like? Anything else to say?
No, watch it this Halloween.
Yeah, if you're looking for something to watch. And if you're like maybe a little bit of a baby about horror, but not too scared, I think this is probably the right level for you. You'll be able to handle the jump scares. And then you'll be laughing when Jamie Kennedy's like, this is why she's going to get murdered, because she's not a virgin and she's upstairs having sex at the same time. And you're like,
Dummy.
Doesn't she know she's in a horror movie? I love all the conversation about like how they are in a movie. You just don't know what kind of movie you're in. Like, that's all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why can't I be in a Meg Ryan movie? And you're like,
if only.
Don't we all wish we were in a Meg Ryan movie?
Absolutely.
It's also like a great movie to double feature with. Like, there's tons of double feature options.
Yeah, do it with
double
Halloween.
feature with Halloween. Rope.
Rope would be
Heavenly
great with
creatures.
this. Any of the ones we've mentioned throughout the course of this.
You can have a day.
Yeah. Fun times. All right. What are we talking about next time?
Next time we're going to be talking about something we've been working on for a little while.
It's a project.
We did this, obviously, a little bit of a shorter episode, one movie. It's because I've been watching for the first time all of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a long-running sitcom.
Yay! This is another audience suggestion. But when they suggested it, I already am a huge Sunny fan, and they said it, and I was like, you are so right. We are 1000% talking about that because it's one of the more interesting queer TV storylines that I've ever seen. So I'm very excited to dig into this. And yes, Kelsey's been watching for the first time. Should be a fun time. Lots to talk about there. A lot more than this episode.
It's probably going to be a slightly longer episode.
Yes, prepare for that. But in the meantime, if you have comments, questions, and concerns, we are reachable at ltbkpod@gmail.com. We are on Twitter and Tumblr at ltbkpod. And we have a Discord, which you can find the link to on our Tumblr. If you are enjoying the podcast, tell a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe. The next episode will be out in November of 2024.